Hello everyone. Last time we have explained about different types of animal interactions. Today we are going to explain the next point, that is competition. There are two types of competitions usually found among the organisms in the community or in the ecosystem. The competitions are of two types, such as interspecific competition and the intraspecific competition. So, all the living organisms shows close interactions or interrelationship or the association between the members of different species. The interactions existing between the members of different species are called as interspecific interactions. So, whatever the interactions, that is a competition type of interactions, there are two type of competition type of interactions, such as interspecific and the intraspecific. So, when the competition between the organisms, when there is a competition between the organisms belonging to different species, is called as interspecific interaction or the interspecific competition. On the other hand, the interactions or the competition when existing between the members of the same species then is called as intraspecific competition or the intraspecific interactions. So, there are two types of interactions with respect to the competition. So, interspecific competition or the interspecific interaction occurs or between the members of the different species. So, when there is a competition type of interaction seen or existing between the members belonging to different species, then is called as interspecific competition or interspecific interactions. And when the interactions occurring between the members of the same species with respect to the competition, then is called as intraspecific interactions. So, first we will explain about the interspecific competition. Interspecific competition. So, members belonging to different species, members or the individuals or the organisms belonging to different species or different populations compete for many factors in the environment, or the members of different populations, members or the individuals of the different populations or the different species compete mainly for living space, then better feeding grounds or better breeding grounds, and so on. There are two type of competitions. There are two type of competition with respect to the interspecific competition. First one, that is competition direct interference type. So, competition between the individuals or the members of different species. The competition between the members of different species, where the competition is of direct interference type or mutual inhibition type. Means the two species of different type or two different species when interact or when compete, which are interfering with one another directly. So there is a direct interference, or direct inhibition of one species by the other species. So here both the populations or the species are engaged actively in inhibiting each other. So when there is a interspecific competition, when there is a interspecific competition, that is the competition between the members of two different species, and when the competition is of direct interference type, means both the species belonging to different type, both the species or the both the populations or the both the organisms belonging to different species, members of different species, when compete or interact with a direct interference type of competition, that is mutual inhibition. So both the species or the both the organisms of different species, both the organisms or the members belonging to different species are inhibiting each other, which are actively engaged in inhibiting each other, and this is therefore a negative interaction, and thus this is a negative type of interaction, or there is a negative impact, there is a negative impact or the negative effect on both the species or members of both the species. This is because of a competition that is a direct interference type, means one species inhibiting the activities of the other type or other species directly. So, competition, direct interference type or mutual inhibition type, here both the populations are engaged or both the species are engaged in actively inhibiting each other, and thus this is a negative type of interaction, because the inhibitory action or the inhibitory activities of both the species are harmful to the both members or to the both species. Then second is competition, that is a resource use type. Competition, resource use type. So when the competition between the members of two different species, when there is a competition between the members of two different species for the resource use, for the use of the resource, particular resource. Here, each of the two populations, here, each of the two populations affecting the other population adversely in the attempt to reach out to the resources which are in short supply. So, whenever there is a scarcity or the shortage of the food supply, of the particular resource in the particular area, at that time both the populations will try to get the or to use the particular resource or the particular food resource on large scale, and this can happen uh, for the competition of the food which is in a short supply in a given area. This is also a negative interaction. So when it means one of the species of the interaction will try to get the more amount or more quantity or more use of the particular resource or the food. So there are two type of competitions found among the interspecific uh, interactions. So there are two type of interspecific competitive interactions. Interspecific competitive interactions, that is competition, that is a direct interference type, and other, that is competition for the resource use type. So interspecific competition, in the interspecific competition, members or the organisms belonging to two different species compete for many factors in the environment, or members of different population or members of different species compete for the living space or habitat, or better feeding grounds, that is a food resource, or the better breeding ground, or better breeding ground, that is for the requirement or the need of the reproduction, and so on. So there are two types of competition. The first type of competition, which is occurring between the members of different species, members of two different species, that is direct interference type. So the individuals or the organisms of two different species which are inhibiting the activities of one another. So ultimately, whatever the competition, that is a direct interference type of competition, where both the organisms or both the species, organisms of both the species will have its harmful effect or adverse effect, and thus this is a negative type of interaction. This is therefore a negative interaction or a negative type of competition interaction, because the organisms or the organisms of the interaction or organisms which are competing with one another belonging to different species, which are inhibiting the activities of each other. So ultimately both are causing some sort of harm or the serious effect, adverse effect on both the species, and thus it is a negative type of interaction. So competition, for the competition, that is a direct interference type or the mutual inhibition, means organisms of two different species are inhibiting one another, so ultimately producing its harmful effect on the both the species, and thus this is therefore a negative interaction. Then second type is competition for the resource use type. So another type of competition between the members of two different species, that is a resource use type. Here each of the two populations, or here each of the two species affects the other population. Each of the two populations, or here each of the two species affecting the other population adversely in attempt to reach out, the resources, means only one species, the organism of the only one species will try to get the entire quantity of the food, or one of the species will try to use or consume the entire quantity, all amount of the food which is in a short supply, which is a in a large, which is in a smaller quantity. When there is a shortage of the food, or when there is a shortage or a limited supply of the resource, that is a food, at that time both the species will try to get more amount of food, and thus this is the competition for the food. This is a competition for the food, that is a resource use type, which is in a short supply in the given area. This is also a negative interaction. So in both the type of competition, that is direct interference type or the resource use type, in both the cases the members of the both species will have the adverse effect or the harmful effect or the negative impact of the competition. Then second type of the competition, that is intraspecific competition. Intraspecific competition. So when the competition when the competition occurring between the individuals or the members of the same species, when there is a interaction or the competition between the members of same species, when the competition interaction or when there is a competition between the individuals of the same species, then is called as intraspecific interaction or intraspecific competition. In this case, most of the associations are beneficial. In this case, most of the associations or relationship or the interaction are beneficial to the species and to the individuals, but under extreme conditions may prove to be harmful. Means, in case of intraspecific competition, usually the competition will not cause any of the harmful effect or any of the adverse effect onto the species or the individuals of the species itself. But under certain conditions, this may prove or this may lead to the harmful effect. So, intraspecific competition, in the intraspecific competition, that is the competition between the members of the same species, usually uh, not affecting any of the harmful effect on the individuals or the species. But sometimes in extreme conditions, this may lead to the harmful effect. So usually there won't be any harmful effect occurring between the members of the same species. Means the members of the same species, when competing with one another, usually or many a times will not cause any harmful effect, and thus the association or the relationship or the competition between the members of the same species usually beneficial to one another. This association may be either temporary or permanent, affecting the following biological and environmental factors. So, the intraspecific competition or the relationship between the members of the same species shows sometime temporary or permanent. So, the relationship or the association, the interaction or the association or the relationship between the members of the same species either temporary or permanent and affecting the following biological and environmental factors. So, first factor, that is competition for food. When the interaction or the competition taking place between the members of the same species, that is intraspecific competition for the food. So when the competition is for food, when the population increases, so when the number of individuals of the same species increases, ultimately the competition among the individuals of the same species also increases and is increased continuously till till the carrying capacity of the environment is reached. So, when there is a competition between the members of the same species for the food, at that time what happens? Usually, when the population or the number of individuals of the same species increasing, ultimately the competition for the food also increasing, and it remains continuously increasing till the carrying capacity of the environment is reached. Means, carrying capacity means the particular ecosystem or the particular environment or the particular habitat is having a capacity, the particular environment or the ecosystem or the particular habitat is having the capacity of the provision of or the supply of the food or the requirement of the particular organism up to a certain limit, up to a certain maximum limit, or the environment or the particular habitat can supply or can support the specific number, the environment or the habitat can support the certain maximum number of the individuals only. That is called as a carrying capacity. So, carrying capacity of the habitat or the environment means the environment or the habitat can support to a definite number, a definite maximum number of the individuals only. That is called as a carrying capacity. So, whenever there is a competition between the members of the same species for the food, at that time, as the population increases, as the number of the individuals increases in the particular area, ultimately the competition for the food also increasing, and this remains continuously increasing. The competition of the organisms of the same species will remain continuously increasing up to reaching the carrying capacity of the particular environment or the habitat. So the over reproduction of the animals, leads to the competition for the food among them due to similar requirements. So the overproduction of the animals or the increase in the population of the animals leads to the competition for the food among them due to their requirement of the similar type of food or their similar requirements. Strong animals usually get benefit. Strong animals, strong individuals or strong animals usually get the benefit while the weaker have to suffer, or the weaker organisms or the members have to suffer, or they may perish, or sometimes they have to leave the particular environment to and goes to certain another place. So whenever there is an increase in a population or increase in a number of individuals of the same species, this will ultimately lead to a competition for the food. And the due to the over reproduction or the continuous increase in a number of organisms or the individuals of the same species, this will lead to the a competition for the food. And this is because the requirement of the food of the increasing population is the same. So due to this, what happens? Usually the strong animals or the strong individuals, they get survive. The strong individuals get survive, or they get more advantage or getting more benefit or getting more amount of the food, while the weak organisms or the weak members will suffer, or they may perish, or they have to migrate, they have to go out, they have to leave the particular habitat so as to find out certain another place. Migrating animals in search of usable foods may upset the natural balance of the new community. So when such animals, which are either weak or with an increased number of the individuals in the particular habitat, ultimately certain animals or the some animals will move or go to certain other place in search of a food. At that time, these individuals can upset or can imbalance the new community. So there may be a upsetting or the imbalance of the new community due to the migration of the individuals from one habitat to the other habitat. During adverse conditions, the animals may eat the members of their own species. This is called as cannibalism. So whenever there is a much of the shortage of the food in the particular habitat due to the overpopulation of the same species, because they needs the same type of food, and if there is a shortage or adverse conditions of the environment, or if there is a shortage of the food, at that time the individuals or the members of the same species are used as a food. So during the adverse conditions, the animals may eat the members of their own species, is called as cannibalism. So this is the stage is called as cannibalism. So the intraspecific competition may leads to the harmful effect on the species, or this may lead to the distribution, this may lead to the distribution of the species in the respective habitat due to increased population. So, whenever there is a intraspecific competition for the food, at that time the strong individuals will get more advantage and the weak individuals will have to suffer the problem, or will have to live, or may perish, or may get killed, or may get died due to the starvation, or they may move to certain other place, or they migrate to certain other place so as to get the food from the certain other suitable place. So overpopulation of the overpopulation of the species or the members of the same species will create the problem whenever there is a overpopulation or over reproduction. So the competition for the food, when population increases, competition among the individuals of the same species also increases. So whenever the population increases or the organisms of the same species increasing, competition among them also increasing, and it remains continuously increasing till the carrying capacity of the ecosystem or the environment, and thus whenever there is a over reproduction of the animals and leads to the competition for the food among them due to the similar type of food. In this case, usually the strong individuals getting more advantage while the weaker organisms will suffer the problem to get the adequate amount of the food, and thus they can perish, and thus they may perish or sometimes leave their particular habitat and go to certain another place, or even due to such problem the migrating animals when moves to certain other habitat or the ecosystem or the community can lead to the natural imbalance of the new community or the new ecosystem. So during adverse conditions, the animals may eat or consume the members of their own species. This is called as cannibalism. Then second type of competition, or the second type of factors which are affected due to the competition between the members of the same species, or the intraspecific competition. So competition for space, moisture, light, and the protection. So these are the four different parameters or four different type of requirements which are usually affected due to the competition. So competition, whenever there is a competition for the space, moisture, light, and the protection among the members of the same species. So when large number of plants or animals are present in a limited area, then there may be a struggle for space, moisture, light, and protection in addition to food. So, in addition to food, there may be a competition between the members of the same species. There may be a competition in a limited space. There may be a competition between the members of the same species in a limited space or the area or the habitat for the space, moisture, light, and the protection in addition to the food. The result may be either the migration of certain animals or the death of some animals or the competitors due to the same requirement, and this struggle can lead to the adverse effect on their ecology or on their environment. So ultimately, whenever there is a rise of population or the increase in a number of the individuals of the same species, will compete for the space, moisture, light and the protection in addition to food. So the result of the competition between the members of the same species for the space, moisture, light and protection can lead to the migration of certain animals, or death of some competitors, or may leads to the death of the some competitors, and this happens due to the same requirement, and this struggle can lead to adverse effect on the ecology. Competition between plants of the same species may resemble the struggle for existence, same as that of the animals. So, this cannot be found only in the animals. The competition for the space, moisture, light, and the protection or the food will not be observed only among the animals. The competition will not be observed only in the animals, but this can also be found among the plants. So among the plants also, when the plants belonging to same species, they also compete. The members of the plants of the same species, the plants of the same species can also compete for the uh, space or moisture or the light or the protection, and can also lead to the competition for these factors. The among the plants also the competition between the plants of the same species for space, moisture, light or protection can also lead to, or also shows, the struggle for the existence, can also show the struggle for the existence similar to the animals. Apparently, nature allows apparently or usually, nature sanctions or allows this natural phenomenon in order to permit the fittest to survive and the unfittest to be exterminated or eliminated. Such competition for the food Such competition for food, light, moisture, or the space may affect the ecological distribution of the organisms. So, usually in the environment, one can observe, or we can observe the fact in the nature or in the environment, that is, the environment or the habitat, particular habitat, usually allow usually allow the survival of the fittest and the elimination of the unfittest. So, survival of the fittest as a rule. This is again a rule. This is also a rule of nature. This is a rule of nature. This is a rule of nature that the nature allows the survival of the fittest, or whatever the resistant species that can grow, that can establish, that can survive, but the unfittest, which are usually eliminated or exterminated because of their less resistance, or they may be weak. They may be weak. These species may be weak, and thus they can't resist, they can't withstand the adverse conditions of the environment, and ultimately they have to eliminate or they get killed. Such competition for the food, light, moisture, or the space may affect the ecological distribution of the organisms. So ultimately, the competition between the members belonging to same species, either for food, light, moisture, or the space, can lead to or can affect the ecological distribution of the organisms. This is because certain animals have to leave the particular habitat, or certain animals can be killed, and only the strong animals or the strong individuals will get benefited or will only survive in the particular habitat because of the competition due to their increased number or the population. So this is about the competition. So in case of intraspecific competition between the members of same species, either for food or the living space or the light or the moisture or the protection. So these are the some important requirements or the needs of the members or the individuals of the same species. So whenever there is a overpopulation due to over reproduction in the limited area can lead to the serious or several adverse effects on the members of the same species, and among which usually what happens, the stronger individuals get more advantage or the benefit, and they only can survive in the particular area, and the weak individuals or which are unfit, which have to suffer from certain disease, or they may be perished, or they may have to leave the respective habitat and have to go to certain other place so as to get the adequate food or the so as to satisfy the particular requirement from certain other environment or certain other habitat. So these are the some of the effects, some of the adverse effects which are usually seen in the respective habitat or in the community or in the environment due to the increased population of the same species, and this will have the adverse effect with respect to uh, the space or the food or the moisture or the protection, and ultimately this will affect the ecological distribution of the organism in the particular habitat. This happens usually due to the increased population of the individuals or the animals of the same species. So this is about the, the intraspecific competition interaction either for food, space, light, moisture or the protection. So these are the similar requirements of the uh, individuals of the same species, and thus this will have the sometimes this will have its effect, adverse effect onto the ecological balance of the particular environment or the habitat. Then third, competition between sexes. So this is also a competition of the members of the same species, or the intraspecific competition of the intraspecific competition for the sexes. So in order to propagate or in order to reproduce or in order to continue the race or the strain or the variety, certain animals may travel long distance for the opposite sex. So the competition between the sexes, whenever the individuals of the same species they compete so as to get or so as to make available the organism or the member of the same species with respect to the opposite sex, at that time there may be a competition so as to get or so as to uh, obtain the opposite sex, the member of the opposite sex, so as to undergo the breeding activities. So competition between sexes for the opposite mate, competition between the sexes so as to obtain, so as to get the opposite mate to satisfy the requirement of the breeding activities or the reproduction. So in order to propagate or to reproduce the race or strain or the variety, of the particular species, certain animals may travel long distance for the opposite sex. In other instance, the competition of several members of one sex. There may be a condition when there is a competition. There may be another condition, that is the competition of the several members. The competition of the several members of the same sex or one sex for a limited number of opposite sex. This may lead to the dispersal or the extermination. This may lead to the dispersal or the extermination or the elimination of both sexes, may influence their distribution in that area. So, the competition may be between one member or the many members of the one sex or both the sexes so as to get the opposite sex, and this may lead to a dispersal of certain organisms or the certain members or certain sex to certain other area. So, in order to propagate or in order to reproduce the race or the strain or the variety, certain animals of the same species may travel over a long distance so as to get the opposite sex. Or sometimes there may be a competition of several members, there may be a competition of several members of one sex for a limited number of opposite sex, may leads to a dispersal or the extermination. Or both sexes may influence their distribution in that area. Means there may be increase or decrease in the members of the same species with respect to one sex or the both sexes. So this will lead to the effect onto the distribution of the animals in the particular area. This competition deals with mating. This competition deals with mating, parental care, and the family life of the particular species. So this competition, that is the competition for a sex, the competition for a sex of the same species, the competition for the opposite sex of the same species can lead to a dispersal, because some members of one sex so as to find out other sex can migrate or move or travel a long distance, and this may lead to the effect onto the dispersal or the distribution of the members or the animals in that area. This competition deals with mating, parental care, and the family life. The association of the sexes, the association of the sexes, the association or the interaction or the competition of the sexes may be temporary, like swarms or the hibernating stages, etc. The association may extend beyond the mating activity well into birth of the litter, or in extreme cases the male become degenerated into a sort of parasite on the female, or in many worms the male is often carried in many worms, the male is often carried and nourished by the females. Or, for example, in Schistosoma hematobium, so this is the worm, the female is carried permanently by the male in a special canal. In case of fish, Photocorymus spiniceps, the male is degenerated or dwarf. The male is degenerated or a dwarf and remains attached permanently to the head of the female. So these are the some sort of associations or interactions or the relationship between the males and females of the particular species. In some cases, male always remains with a female, or in some cases, females always remains with a male, or in some cases, after mating, the males are died, or in certain cases, the males get killed after mating, or in some cases, the females and the male members always remain together so as to solve the problem to get the opposite member of the opposite sex. So these are the some of the associations. So the association may extend beyond the mating activity well into the birth of the litter. In extreme cases, the male become degenerated into a sort of parasite on the female. So in some cases, males are parasitic. Males are nourished by the females. Males are parasitic, or males are degenerated, or males remain along with the females as the female nourish them. In extreme cases, the male become degenerated into a sort of type of parasite on the female. In some cases, the males are parasitic and remains or depends on the female. In case of males, when they are parasitic, which are nourished by the females, or they are depending upon the females. In many worms, the male is often carried and nourished by the females. In Schistosoma, that is a Schistosoma hematobium, the female is carried permanently by the male in a special canal. Means males and females live together. In some cases, males and females live together so as to solve the problem of getting opposite mate or opposite sex for the reproduction purpose. In case of fish Photocorymus, the male is degenerated dwarf and remain attached permanently on the head of the female. In case of a fish that is Photocorymus, the male is degenerated dwarf, or the male is inactive type, or the male is uh, uh, of inferior type. The male is of inferior type or degenerated dwarf, and thus always remains attached to the head of the female. Even the courtship is also universal. The courtship is also universal, almost universal, but is most striking or harmful among some fishes, frogs, birds, and many mammals. So, courtship, that is a mating activity. The mating activity is also very harmful or striking among some species of the fishes, frogs, birds, and many mammals. For example, courtship or the mating in scorpions and praying mantis proves eventually fatal or dangerous to the males. The female devours or the female eats the male at the end of copulation, as in case of scorpions or praying mantis. So, courtship, that is a mating behavior, courtship, that is a mating behavior, courtship, that is a mating behavior or the mating activity found to be fatal or dangerous in some species. For example, the courtship in scorpions, praying mantis proves eventually fatal or dangerous to the males, where the females eat the males, where the females eat the males at the end of copulation. During courtship, there is often keen competition. During courtship, there is often a keen competition and disastrous fights among the males. So, in case of certain examples, there may be a dangerous fight between the male members so as to mate with a female. Most animals look most animals look after their embryonic conditions and protecting them from the attack of the natural enemies, and thus some members or the some animals look after or taking care of their embryonic stages and immature stages or the larval stages by shielding or covering them from the unfavorable conditions of the environment and protecting them from the natural enemies. This is the parental care which is found within nearly all animals. So, in most of the animals, the competition between the sexes, that is a one fact, so as to get the opposite sex. So as to get the opposite sex, many organisms or the many members, they shows the competition. There may be a competition of one mate or one sex so as to get the opposite sex, or there may be a competition of several members of one sex to get the opposite sex which are with a limited number. Or there may be a competition. This can show the competition may deals with mating, parental care, and the family life also. So there are series of examples where there is a competition of the members of the same species so as to get the opposite sex. In many cases, there may be the males are parasitic, or in many cases, the females are parasitic, and thus there may be a problem for the survival of the either males or the females from getting devoured or eaten up by the other sex, as in case of the scorpions and the praying mantis. As in a case of scorpion and the praying mantis, the male members are eaten up or consumed by the females at the end of copulation. So this is what the adverse effects. These are the adverse effects or the harmful effects due to the harmful mating behavior. So this is a harmful mating behavior which is also found among the several species of the fishes, frogs, birds and the mammals. As in case of scorpion and praying mantis, that proves eventually or finally fatal or dangerous to the males, as the females eat the males at the end of copulation or during courtship. Even there is a competition or distress fights found among the males. So there are certain species of the animals which shows a fight between the male members so as to undergo the breeding activities. Or there may be the certain sex or the members of the certain sex or both the sexes, they are taking care of or looking after their embryonic stages or the immature young ones and can cover them underside or a cover, body cover, so as to protect them from the unfavorable conditions of the environment or so as to protect them from the natural enemies. So this is the parental care which is found within nearly all animals. Then some animals lay their eggs. Some animals lay their eggs in cracks, crevices, or in protector places, as in cockroaches and bedbugs. Some animals prepare holes or the bags and keep the eggs, as in most amphibians. Still, other animals carry eggs with them till they hatch. So this is a type of parental care can be seen or observed uh, in the many animal species. That is, they shows a parental care with respect to the protection of the eggs or the larvae or the young stages so as to protect them from the natural enemies. So this is about the a competition, that is a interspecific competition or the intraspecific competition. So there are two type of competitions usually found among the animals in the particular habitat or the particular environment of the ecosystem. So competition may be intraspecific or interspecific. So competition may be interspecific or intraspecific. So competition may be of direct interference type, or the competition may be the resource use type. And in both the cases, the competition may be interspecific or intraspecific, will lead to harmful effects or the advantages, both type of effects. That is, in some cases there are beneficial effects or the positive impact, or there may be a negative impact of the competition, either between the members of the same species or the members of the different species. So there are two type of competition, that is interspecific and intraspecific competitions, and these competitions may have the positive effect, between the members of the association, or there may be the negative impact or the negative effect or interactions on the members of one species or the other species. So there are two type of competition, that is interspecific competition or intraspecific competition. So interspecific competition may shows the competition for the and direct interference type or direct inhibition of one species by the other species, or the competition may be for the resource use type, that is for the food. So where also there is a adverse effect on the ecosystem, and this may affect the balance or natural balance, or leading into the imbalance, or this will affect the ecology of the ecosystem, or this may lead to the effect on the distribution of the animals even among the members of same species or the different species. Intraspecific competition usually found to be beneficial to all members of the particular species, but sometimes this may be harmful because of overpopulation. Whenever there is a uh, over reproduction or overpopulation or increase in number of the members of the same species, that will also have the negative impact on the particular ecosystem or the species. So competition may be for the food or space, moisture or light or the protection. So among the plants and animals belonging to same species can also show the adverse effect on the ecosystem. So this may lead to the migration of certain animals, this may lead to the starvation of certain animals, or this may lead to the death of the certain members, where can also show the particular natural phenomenon, that is survival of the fittest or the extermination of the unfit. So unfit individuals can exterminated or can be killed, or the strong individuals may shows their survival. Strongest or the fittest individuals can survive and unfittest can exterminate. So this type of effect or this type of effect or the activity can also be observed or found among the different organisms of the same species in a particular ecosystem. So there may be a struggle for existence found among the animals or the plants, both. Or there may be a competition between the sexes of the same species, and this can also lead to the some sort of adverse effects so as to find out the opposite mate. So there may be a dispersal or the migration of members of one species, either one sex or both the sexes, and can show the journey or a travel over a long distances. So this will lead to the dispersal of the members of the same species from one community or from one ecosystem to other ecosystem. So there are several adverse effects may also be seen or observed among the members of the same species, so as to uh, undergo the breeding activities like courtship. So courtship can also show, while courtship also, there are several type of adverse effects occurring on the one sex or both the sexes, uh, so as to fight, so as to solve the problem of the opposite mate, or so as to solve the problem of the opposite mate. In some cases, there may be males parasitic or the females parasitic, or there may be the males and females living together so as to solve the problem to find the opposite mate or the opposite sex. So this is about the interspecific and the intraspecific competition. Next time we will explain the beneficial associations. So today with this we'll stop here. Remaining will continue next time. Thank you.